Hello, my name is Jason JROCK Houston. You guys are listening to an interview being done tonight for Under of Influence. My great pleasure to be speaking with James Kruk, who's a great Elvis tribute singer based out of Los Angeles, California. How are you doing tonight, James?
Very, very good, Jason. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk to everybody.
Yeah, well, it's my great pleasure. I'm very interested in learning a little more about your story. Now, I guess the best place to start this interview off is if you could share with us how you first got into the music of Elvis Presley yourself and became a fan.
I guess the first time I heard Elvis was really a 4-5 record that I had. Sleepless Minds, and I was probably 6 or 10 years old when I heard it, and I loved it. But I wasn't necessarily a fan of Elvis. I loved that song. I loved his jumpsuits, and I remember him being on TV, playing different records on TV. But I was an actor. I was in rock and roll bands. Started out in New York and then moved to Los Angeles. And about 1998, I got opportunity to audition to play Elvis in a touring Broadway play.
Wow. Wow, so that's pretty cool. And now, as far as when you were seeing Elvis on TV and all that, is this back in, were we talking like in the 70s or a little before that?
Yeah, he was still alive at that point. So I was a little guy, but you would be common on TV. You'd see, Elvis performing, and they'd roll these songs of this, there was vinyl then, Elvis Presley, king of rock and roll.
Yeah.
99
Wow.
You'd watch cartoons, and then it was kind of cool. I could see a commercial for Elvis.
Wow, I gotta say, just hearing you do that, you definitely got the voice now. Going back, did you say it was 1990 when you got the call to do the Broadway thing?
Mm-hmm. That was 1998.
Oh, 98. Wow. And how did you get approached? Yeah.
It wasn't really a play about Elvis. The play was art versus science versus faith. And, it was written by the comedian Steve Martin.
Oh, okay.
And it was really about meeting Einstein. But I think to kind of end the play, he has Elvis out, and to show that there's another type of genius. You have an artistic genius as a painter, a scientific genius, Einstein, and then you have a musical
genius,
cultural genius, really, like the first genius of that type of, the pop star, I think, was. And my favorite line in the play is you see their names in the stars, and Einstein says to Elvis, we see our names, but we don't see yours. And Elvis goes, well, there it is. It's above both of yours and twice as big.
Yeah. And now, how did you get approached about taking part in that production? Was it through, did Steve Martin himself approach you or one of his people?
Yeah, I person that they knew that because at the time I had sideburns and hair like Elvis, but I wasn't singing Elvis, but people knew I was a fan, and then someone just mentioned, you got to audition for this play, and I got in touch with my agent, and I got an audition, and I had to fly to LA, as I was in San Francisco at the time, and audition for Steve Martin himself.
Wow.
So it's just in the room in this big theater, me, Steve Martin, and the director of the play. So, and I was really young at the time. So it was kind of really nerve-wracking, and I was scared, but I got the job. I did that for about 2 years.
Wow. What a great experience. Now, let me ask you, up until that point, had you done any acting or any kind of performing like this, or is this something you kind of just accidentally fell into?
I was an actor and I sang in my own rock band.
Oh, okay.
Like I wrote my own stuff, and really I got the job because Steve Martin had known Elvis, and that's just kind of normal for me. And he was like, you know what? When the few times I had spoken to Elvis, like he kind of laughed at my jokes because he had a quirky sense of humor too, and that's what we needed for the part. So I was an actor who just sang on the side.
Wow.
You know, so I got into the Elvis tribute business kind of in the backwards.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Now let me ask you, after having done the production with Steve Martin for those 2 years, you know, up until that point, did you ever had anybody tell you that, hey, you know, you kind of look and remind me of Elvis, or is this something you kind of morphed into?
During the show when I had the hair dyed black, and all that, but I used to just at parties I used to do Burning Love, but just, you know, myself.
Yeah.
People would be like, oh, come on, James, will you do it? And I'd do the whole thing, you know. Certainly didn't hurt, you know, if we drank a little and we were having some fun. But, so that's kind of how it all started. And then we would do a couple Elvis songs in my band, but I wouldn't try to sing like Elvis, but I did the songs because people said I sounded like Elvis, even though I wasn't really trying to.
Yeah. Because I got to tell you, you know, one of the things, reason why I reached out to you and really want to talk to you, because, you know, I went on your Facebook page and I got to say, you really look authentic. You really look the part of Elvis. You sound the part. You got professional looking promo videos up there. So I can see all the hard work and dedication that you put into your act. So, you know, once you start doing this Elvis tribute, what was the homework involved? Did you have to spend hours looking at videos and stuff?
Yeah, I think the most important thing, if you're going to do it, you have to be able to sing. Now, you don't necessarily have to be able to sound like Elvis, I don't think, but you have to be able to put an emotion into those songs.
Yeah.
So I spent hours upon hours singing, you know, with my karaoke set in the garage, you know, when I could, in the car, listening to Elvis and singing all of that I could, and just not, like I said, not to try to exactly mimic how he sounds, but to try to get that across in the songs. Because I don't think I sound exactly like, I really don't. I mean, and I'm not trying to. I'm trying to sing them with as much power and feeling, and to bring the listener to make them think about Elvis.
Yeah, you know, and
not to think about me necessarily, but just to go, oh wow, this guy's really exciting and fun to watch, and it also makes me want to watch movies of Elvis and listen to Elvis.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting that you got your start in, you know, in the acting and in the theater, because, you know, to me, this is great rock and roll theater, if you will. I mean, it's more than a guy just getting up there in his jeans and t-shirts and playing Elvis music for the night. I mean, anybody coming to your show, I mean, even a casual observer, they're gonna love the show for a simple fact that you look close enough to Elvis Presley. You sound close enough to him. You know, you're not Elvis Presley, obviously, but you might take somebody back to the first time they seen Elvis in concert, or the first time they heard an Elvis Presley song. Or in many cases, you know, Elvis has been he's passed on many years ago, and so he's never going to perform again. So for some people who never got that opportunity, you're also an opportunity to show them what an Elvis Presley show is like.
Thank you. I mean, that's what we're trying to do. Also include the people who did see him.
Yeah.
But I don't know if the show that, you know, you know, I can't, you know, I don't want any fading audience close or think that I'm his equal. You know, if he wasn't existing, I wouldn't be doing this, obviously.
Yeah.
What I like to say is thanks for letting us borrow you, Elvis fans, for a little while. But yeah, thank you. So, you know, it is theater. That's what I think it should be also. Elvis didn't go up on stage and stand there, you know.
Yeah.
Like, you know, rock stars today
Yeah.
If you're doing rock and roll and people are dancing, you gotta dance too.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. Like Elvis was ultimate showman. I mean, even performers like Kiss or Alice Cooper, even they get done up in the makeup and stuff, and they give their audience, a little something extra.
Well, if you look at the '70s, Mick wears jumpsuits all throughout the '70s. So people think it's just Elvis. Elvis started it, but everybody, wore one. Like David Cassidy wore a jumpsuit.
Yeah.
Everybody did.
Yeah, while we're talking about your jumpsuit, I gotta ask if you mind sharing this, because I was reading a little story up on your Facebook page, something about the fact that you were harassed by a drug-sniffing dog, and I thought that was kind of comical.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, I was driving with our bass player at the time, and his wife has MS, so he has a very specialized vehicle that can fit a wheelchair, and it was brand new.
Wow.
And so they asked him what it was, and he gave the honest answer.
Yeah.
Well, it's a Nissan, but it was built by Dodge for, et cetera, because my wife got severe, she has breathing problems, so there has to be oxygen in the vehicle anyway.
Yeah.
So they thought that was weird, and they make her get out in the wheelchair,
wow.
my bass player and me, and they want to put all our stuff in the middle of the road, well, the parking lot. And I was like, please, can you don't put that, my jumpsuit, I was like, don't put that in the road. And they got a little mad that I was getting mad that they were putting it in the road, but so.
Yeah.
But then I explained, I showed them the car, I told them what I did. Told them that I just given a concert, and they radioed to the town I was just in. And they were like, oh, okay.
Okay, we believe you now.
But it was stressful, man.
Yeah, I bet. And now, yeah.
There were dogs sniffing through all the stuff.
Wow. Yeah, and Elvis fans they're very diehard, so anybody come to see your show, I mean, I imagine they're really checking out what you're all about, and you got people really giving you all kinds of comments, probably positive and negative. Have you ever come across somebody like one of those people like, oh, hey man, I knew you were still alive, people that might really think you're Elvis?
Never. I hope never seriously, but sometimes I get, you have to learn to accept the fact that people love to make the same jokes.
Yeah.
They like to hear you say, thank you very much.
Yeah.
They like to just make those kinds of jokes. But no, I've never had anybody really insulting or actually think I was alive.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm asking is, you get these crazy conspiracy theory, these diehard fans that even to this day they think he's in hiding, or that he's, and I could just see somebody, oh man, I knew you were alive, man, I knew you were, why are you coming out now?
Someone cornered me and told me that they believe that you look in their eyes and they do believe it. Certain people do believe he's still alive. I think they want him to be
true
so badly that they believe it, but
and Elvis was such a character. Forget a bit about what a great performer he was, but so much to the fact that I mean, he's one of a few people that he's known just by one name. Elvis. Cher.
Right.
And that's what a great powerful performer this guy was. That he only needed to be known by one name.
Exactly, and I think that that's rare, and I think that's why he'll endure for generations and more generations, whereas a lot of the people we think are cultural icons won't. What kid remembers, John Wayne right now?
Yeah.
Even though wonderful and famous as he was, it's just, certain people unfortunately don't get remembered as well. But
yeah.
because Elvis started the whole thing, and he was such a character, I think he's gonna keep living on.
Yeah, I mean, today in the music industry, I mean, you don't have iconic figures like that anymore. I mean, everything to me is turned too much into like cookie cutter stuff. You got these kids going on American Idol, they have other people, the process has really changed. You have other people. Well, we want you to have a hit, so we're gonna have somebody else come in and write a song where, this is what's popular. We're gonna.
When I was a kid, in high school, I mean, ever since I was probably in 14, 15, I was always in bed. Like sometimes we'd sit in the garage for 2 hours and play one song.
Yeah.
But it was the greatest feeling ever. I don't think that many kids feel that, and so when I'm on stage, I am that kid again, and I think rock and roll or music in general, that's why we love it.
Yeah, and let me ask, let me ask you, James, because you said when you started doing this, you kind of were just kind of like a casual Elvis fan, but do you find in the time that you've been doing this, you become more of a fan since you started performing?
Oh, that's the best thing about it.
Yeah.
When I first started doing some of the contests, I didn't know about the strength of his fans and what people cared about him. I didn't know all of the wonderful songs, and so I become a bigger fan every day.
Yeah, and as far as your set list, do you cover material from his entire career, or just like the the big radio hits, or how do you guys come up with this?
We do the 50s stuff, but we do them as he would do them in the 70s, and we do like something like Shake, Rattle, and Roll.
Yeah.
Don't change the arrangement that much, even though I'm in a jumpsuit. I know some people, purists, will be like, "Oh, you can't do that if it's not." But I like to, if the fans, that's just something that they ask me to do. So if that's what they want, and they want to hear me do it in my style, even though it's not exactly period or, era.
Yeah.
I'm not a stickler for that, because it just makes the show better. And some tunes he never performed live, we do from the stacked sessions. Like We're in That Love Don't Look, although people do that with you. So we do the songs that we love to do. And if we suggest one to the band, even I don't really care if he did in the 50s or never did it live. So we do the songs we love, and we think we should bring some more obscure ones and let people hear those and see how good the non-mega hits were.
Yeah, I mean that's a great thing about putting together a tribute act like this, because how many people haven't heard Hound Dog or Jailhouse Rock, but at the same time, like you said, there's so many great deep cuts that people may not even be aware of it. You're got the opportunity to turn them on to.
Yeah, and I think that especially with younger people, there's a lot of kids who come to our shows. I think if they start watching Elvis, I'll always suggest them to watch Elvis. That's the way it is.
Yeah.
And I think you can watch one Elvis movie, watch that one, and then you'll be a fan for life. And so hopefully, because the kids love those 50s tunes. That's also why we love it. They may never have heard of or seen Elvis, but they've heard that music somehow, somewhere.
Yeah.
But those tunes just get you moving.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, and it's great to have the diehard Elvis fans coming to your shows, I imagine, and having these people tell you, "Oh man, you took me back to when I first seen Elvis in concert. First time I heard an Elvis Presley song on the radio." But it must be equally gratifying when you have a 16-year-old kid in the audience that you're turning Elvis on to. That's got to be just because hey, they weren't even alive when he performed, in concert for the very last time. So that's got to be a great feeling that you've got the ability to turn on a young kid like that.
It's the best feeling. I mean, think about like the older generation were alive when these songs were new.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm so jealous of them, that they got to feel that, turning on the radio and like, oh, it's a new Elvis song. Or hearing Heartbreak Hotel for the first time, we had no idea how powerful that was, because it was such a weird tune to come out in the mainstream. It starts with him yelling.
And now,
no one did that, really.
And let me ask you, James, how often do you play shows? Like, do you typically play in theaters? Do you get like where you're playing residencies for a couple of months? So, what's your typical gig like?
Typical gig is all over. A lot of theaters, casinos, some like concerts, festivals. then we do a bunch of private stuff. For weddings and all over the place, country clubs.
Okay, cool.
There's no like one thing.
Yeah, but
we're all over the place, but mostly the Southwest. Although I just got back from New York where I did a couple shows.
Oh, that's great. So a lot of times, like you're playing in other states, you're not necessarily just staying local here in the Los Angeles area. That's great.
Yeah.
Get to actually go on the road with this thing. That's got to be a great feeling to not that you've kind of made that kind of impact that you're not just staying local.
True, and I think I try not to be. I mean, a big book to show is not Elvis. That's my website. So particularly because I wanted to reach, things had trouble with clubs and places like, oh yeah, we love the show and Elvis, but I don't think that many people have come to see an Elvis show. But I'll say, well, they'll come to see mine because it's not Elvis. Yeah, see, that's the thing about doing a tribute like this is, I think there's definitely an audience for it, but it's kind of where are you going to play the show, because like if you play like place like the House of Blues, like a lot of these other tribute bands do, it's going to be hard to kind of book a Elvis act, like even with like a Fleetwood Mac tribute band, it's just not it's not going to act. Elvis, I think you're going to get a better response like if you do a headlining thing where an evening with you, so to speak. Yeah. Well, we did the House of Blues with Leonard Skinner tribute and kind of a rock and roll country act, and that went over pretty well.
Wow, how cool is that? Now that's a show I definitely would have came to check out now. Wow, so that sounds cool. And now you're talking a little bit about some movies Elvis had made. How big a fan were you of his acting as much of his music?
Well, I've come to think that he's a far better actor than people give him credit for, because he often had to work with terrible scripts.
Yeah.
I think he's such a charismatic guy, and I think he was a way better actor than mainstream people think, because he makes those movies, the worst of them, watchable, and the best of them are incredible. His magic of him and Anne Margaret in Viva Las Vegas, that's amazing. Even you have technological flaws, when you watch him driving the race car with his dad's backdrop behind him, you can forgive that because of the time, but those movies are alright. Some are trickier to watch than others, but then there's always a good song in there.
Yeah. And just talking to you, I think another reason you're a perfect guy to pay tribute to Elvis is, like you told me, you're both an actor and a musician. So I got to ask you, when you think of yourself, do you lean more towards thinking you're more of a musician or more of an actor?
Oh boy, I don't know.
I mean,
it's always cooler to say a musician first to act, but probably realistically, I'm an actor. Is a good enough actor to fool people into believing he's a good singer.
Yeah, well, but interesting. Yeah, I got to tell you, James, knowing nothing about you except for the fact that you're an Elvis tribute singer before I talked to you tonight, the coolest part that I've heard so far about your story is the fact that you weren't even a guy that had the intention that you were going to start out on this career paying tribute to Elvis, or not even necessarily that people ever told you look like Elvis or anything. You started out as an actor. You got a role in the Steve Martin play. You did that for 2 years, and then you kind of morphed into what you're doing now, which I think makes what you're doing now that more greater, because you just kind of morphed into it. You had no plan to do this.
Exactly, and it really became out of necessity. I was doing it kind of part-time, a month at like a private party or a church.
Yeah.
And then I was teaching school at a junior college, and it closed. So then I had to try to make money any way I could. So that's when I really hit doing the Elvis tribute a lot more serious. You know, I got 3 kids.
Yeah.
And my wife had her own business, so we were trying to build both of them at the same time. And luckily, you know, through a lot of hard work, it's worked out great for both of us.
And so you said you started doing Elvis tribute. What year? Was that after the play?
After the play, I didn't do it for about 8 years.
Wow.
And then, you know, I actually moved to Europe and was just teaching English over there.
Wow.
So I wasn't doing anything about 4 years. And then my wife told me about this Elvis contest because I used to sing for her.
Uh-huh.
And she told me to go there, and I wouldn't, you know, I kept saying no, 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 and then finally she said, basically, stop being so stupid and go. She didn't say it so nicely, but I went, and I won this contest down in San Diego. That kind of started the whole new thing about that. That was 2008.
And that must have really given you a confidence that you came in, you know, first in that contest to think, okay, maybe there is something to this, what my wife and other people tell me this, doing this Elvis tribute. Because, again, not even knowing nothing about you, James, I just go on the website and look at your photos, and to me, I'm like, man, this guy is Elvis. You know, I've never seen your show, but it's like, man, I want to go to this guy's show because he looks the part. He's that good, you know, and it's even interesting to hear you say, you know, I don't necessarily think I really look that much like Elvis, but I think to the casual observer, you know, even somebody like me just sitting there looking at the photos, you look enough like Elvis to, you know, convince people, okay, this guy's got his, you know, act down.
Yeah, well, that's good enough. I mean, you know, you gotta spend a lot of money to look good,
Yeah.
that's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I think that's all part of it too, having really nice costumes, beautiful hair, that's all part of it. It's not cheap to make it, the Elvis costumes weren't cheap. So,
Yeah.
you know, his replicas aren't either, and that's all part of the investment, and I think that's a big part of it as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, is that a big expense as far as the show you put on? Would you say that the costumes are equally as expensive as some of the gear and equipment, or would you say it's about equally expensive?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like a really good wig,
Uh-huh.
if you wear a wig, it's like $2,500. And the best jumpsuits can cost $5,000.
Uh-huh.
Mine don't, but mine are close, you know, and so that's, you know, they're about the same. It's really good musical equipment is expensive too. And vintage guitars that, you know, my guys play.
Yeah.
Or, you know, they're custom guitars made to sound vintage, you know, so everything costs a lot. And it's worth it. I mean, because they're paying a lot of money to see it often, so,
Yeah.
you know, I think they deserve to get a show, you know, and everything is taken account.
Yeah, I mean,
Taken into account.
yeah, I mean that's like I was saying earlier. That's why if I go see like a band like Kiss or Alice Cooper, for example, I don't mind paying, you know, a little bit of money for the ticket if I'm gonna, you know, leave feeling that I got my money's worth. And I think that's what you're, you know, that's a service here you're providing to your fans. That okay, well, if you guys are willing to pay this much come to the show, I'm gonna give you a night to remember. You know, a show you won't ever forget.
Absolutely, and that's part of the tribute as well. I don't think Elvis ever went out there, even on his worst days when he was sick and shouldn't have been out there.
Yeah.
But I think he still tried with all his heart to give the best show ever. And probably 99% of the time he did, you know.
In addition to singing, I was curious. Do you play the guitar at all yourself during the show?
I really started by playing the bass, so I can play the bass all right. I can play the guitar. You know, I know probably 4 or 5 chords on the guitar, but I wouldn't say like if you were gonna have a jam, you wouldn't want to be out there, you know, with some really good musicians.
And and I was curious, like you said that you done your own original rock music, you know, early on in your career. I was curious, were you really serious about, you know, trying to you know, get your own original stuff recorded, or was it something you kind of just did for fun on the side?
Yeah, we did one like mini LP, and we got a lot of work doing comedy club. That's the band that would play at intermission, and we would do the intro music for each comedian. And it's funny because we're the only. My band is probably the only part of the shows we used to do where every comedian's going on to become famous.
Yeah.
And my band did, like there's like Patton Oswalt, he would come all the time. All these great comedians. This is a while ago.
Yeah.
They were all young. We were all young. But it's funny. I saw these fantastic comedians working their new material. We were the band.
On their way up, yeah.
Most of the songs that I wrote that people liked were all just kind of weird, humorous songs.
Yeah, and the reason I ask is, you might be curious on why I started interviewing guys like you that, in tribute bands and tribute acts, and it's because I've been to many of these tribute shows. I enjoy it immensely, and I've personally seen all the hard work and dedication that goes into putting on a show, even like what you're doing, James. And then on the flip side, there are people with this huge misconception that believe, anybody that does a tribute act, they're a failed musician, they couldn't make it doing their own original music. But the interesting thing, some of the musicians I've interviewed, they've told me, it's very interesting that I tried to do the original music thing for years, and it took me a very long time to even have my first hit single or anything like that, as opposed to when I started doing the tribute thing. There was immediate success in that people were coming to the shows because there's kind of a built-in audience, if you will. Like in your case, people come to see you. They kind of have an expectation. Okay, he's playing Elvis material. We're going to hear Jailhouse Rock. We're going to hear this. We're going to hear Hound Dog or whatever, or Love Me Tender. And so that's kind of an interesting thing. My question to you, as a guy that once did original music, when you started doing this Elvis tribute, were you at all surprised to see the kind of reaction you were getting right away?
Yeah. I was, and I think other tribute bands, I think, have a better time now once that were 70s and 80s, because I think a younger crowd goes to the clubs. It's been a trickier sell to sell Elvis to mainstream clubs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I know guys who are in really good touring bands, but they, when they can't tour all the time.
Yeah.
So I found some incredible musicians, and when they're not touring, they play for me. And I found that, I used to use older guys who were kind of around in the 70s and knew that music, and then I found, some 20-somethings and 30-year-olds, and I found that they put a different energy into it, and they connect to a younger crowd and connect to the older crowd who loves to see the new generation learning these songs. But there is a built-in audience, and I think it's just the way the industry is. The club industry is very different than the music industry itself, because it's all meant for 13-year-olds.
Yeah, and I got to ask if you've ever played because obviously for Elvis, Vegas is one of the places to play. I mean, there's no doubt an audience for him there, or even like in Nashville. I was wondering if you ever had the experience to play either Nashville or in Las Vegas, and what kind of response did you get at those places?
I've done 4 contests in Las Vegas, and the audience response. They're always on Fremont Street, so they're free, but anywhere from 2,000 to 7,000 people can come out and see these things. And when I've been there, and a guy from Los Angeles, I think it was scary for the Vegas guys who kind of have the monopoly out there to see some guy from not Vegas because I got huge response from the crowd, like standing ovation. And the last contest I did, I came in second. So I wouldn't want to live in Vegas. We thought about it for a little while, but there's guys who've been there for a while. They know the people, and so they're going to hire their people before they hire someone who's not their people in Vegas. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
I have made an impact there, believe me.
I mean, even they got. I'm sure you've heard of legends in concerts, and they've got a guy who does Elvis and Michael Jackson, different from different eras of the music scene. So they do have that there. That kind of got started there, and it's turned into what it is today. But they got all kinds of great acts like that in Vegas. And now Elvis, interestingly enough, like we were saying, he's quite the iconic figure. That he just Elvis says it all. That one name. So if you're gonna be paying, he's one of these guys that if you're gonna be paying tribute to, you better have your act down, so to speak. And I think the fact that you've been doing this as long as you have, that you've kind of put your imprint on the tribute scene here, and people are taking notice of you for a reason, because if you're going to pay tribute to Elvis and you didn't, and you were really good at it, you wouldn't still be doing it. So there's something to be said for that.
Oh man, and the places I've sang and the people I've met are doing this, and it's been incredible. I mean, I met Linda Thompson, who was Elvis' girlfriend for 5 years. A couple of times she loves the fact that I don't try to be exactly
like him.
Elvis.
Yeah.
Thinks it's kind of like a fresh take on the whole thing, and I think that's really why I think I'm a little different and had a different type of success at it, like than the other guys who work for, like you said, legends and concerts.
Yeah.
They're all, they're contracted to be and act a certain way.
Yeah.
They're a little more restricted than I am. So
No,
I think
yeah.
shows are different, and that's why you can enjoy theirs. But I think if you see mine the next night, you'll be like, oh wow, there's a whole new
approach. Yeah.
take on the same thing.
Yeah, because you make a very good point. I interviewed this guy out here in LA that he had a Billy Idol tribute, and he took when I first interviewed him for the first time, it's for this band called Really Idol. The band is kind of disbanded, but he told me at the time, he said it wasn't even my band. It was one of these big agencies. They kind of owned the band, and I was working for them, and they told me, they rehearsed with me the moves and everything. It was all choreographed, whereas I wasn't really into that. So I got my own band going. I run the band. I do a show my way, and he says I feel more I feel more comfortable doing it that way than being told how to move on stage, so to speak.
Exactly. For me, it's just more fun, and that ultimately life.
Yeah.
You really have to enjoy it, and I think for me to keep enjoying it and keeping my show new and fresh and everything, I have to keep it new to myself. And I think if all I was doing was the same movements every show, because Elvis, that's what I have trouble with certain scene tributes. It's like, okay, I know Elvis moved to the left, talk to the guitar player at this point, then you see them do that. And that to me gets,
kind of tired.
It's so interesting. It's what he didn't do that you put up to your imagination. Maybe no one saw every Elvis concert, so who knows what he did every night.
And that's got to make for an audience a much more enjoyable performance, because if you see some guy up there on just kind of method acting and kind of doing the predictable thing and playing the predictable songs, it's the same old thing, because sitting here talking, like there's 1,000 Led Zeppelin tributes all forget about here in Southern California, but all around the world. And so if you're gonna be a Led Zeppelin tribute, the cream kind of rises to the top of you. Well, you got to have something special to offer instead of doing the same show.
I think so too.
And
with any band, whether it be you're the best band at playing the music, or the band that looks the best, or whatever it is. I mean, I think it's you have to.
Yeah.
If you want to keep working, you got to do something to deserve it.
Yeah, it sounds like what you do makes it much more funner for the audience, or much more enjoyable. Excuse me. Is you're not constantly up there thinking on stage. You're more natural. You're just doing what comes truly from the heart, and I think that's always makes for the best performance, as opposed to if you're overthinking. Okay, what am I going to do next? What am I going to do next? It comes across as more scripted.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to. There's no script. It's a rock and roll show.
Exactly.
The audience is a part of. I talk to them during the song, and just because
Yeah.
They're giving some sort of different energy to me that I want to acknowledge. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
And I imagine too.
It took a while to get to this point. For sure,
yeah, and I imagine when you're up on stage, Elvis is such a loved performer that all these people in the audience, they got to be singing along with you. That's got to be a great feeling that that you and the audience are one, so to speak, and they're singing right along with you.
Yeah, when he gets into Las Vegas, people love me. I'll go Las Vegas.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well, I gotta. Have you ever thought about doing voiceover? Like as Elvis? Because man, you got the voice down. I gotta say.
Well, I would. I've done a couple of things for TV, and I sang in a movie where I had to be Elvis, and I had to talk a little bit. But no, I haven't done many voiceovers as Elvis.
And would you ever, if you were ever approached, if somebody's putting together an Elvis movie, like a biopic or even a documentary, would you ever consider, playing the role of Elvis, so to speak, in a film or something like that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that someone should make a movie about the later years when he had his troubles. I mean, people, I know that Elvis Enterprises doesn't want people to see that, but I think if it's done right and it's, it might help people with addiction. Even the King of Rock and Roll had trouble.
Yeah.
So, they don't want to show that side of him, and I think that's very much a part of him, is his demon, so to speak, and I don't think people should just sweep it under the rug. Guy died probably because of complications due to drugs, and there's no way around it.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
Address it, and it makes me love him more.
Yeah.
It wasn't perfect.
And I got to ask you on that note, James. Do you remember where you were or how you first heard the news that Elvis had died? And what was that news like when you heard it for the very first time?
We were on summer vacation. We used to go to Cape Cod because I grew up in New York, and that was the big summer vacation.
Wow.
We just got there, and my teenage brother was riding his bike. There was like a 300-mile ride, and he actually told us, and I didn't know what it meant at the time. It was just like that guy in the cool jumpsuit who sang that song that I really dug wasn't around anymore, and I just see it on the TV, people were crying, but for me, I didn't know why. I was too little to understand what he had done already. It's just beyond my understanding. It came far later. Yeah,
it's kind of like I put it like, I remember, about 6 years ago when it came over the news that Michael Jackson had just died. I'm coming home from work. I hear this on the radio. I'm like, wait a minute. I didn't hear that right. No, it's got to be a joke or, And then it's like, wow. You just there's certain entertainers when you learn their death. It's like, wow, I can't even believe that. But and it's kind of interesting, to hear of it. Like when he died, you were relatively, young, just barely a teenager, and look at what you're doing now. You're paying tribute to the man. And I love the fact that you didn't necessarily start out as one of these diehard Elvis fans. That you kind of just kind of fell into it accidentally, and that makes it that much more beautiful.
I wasn't a teenager when he died. I was like 6.
Oh wow! See that makes this even.
So that's why I didn't understand. I mean, that's when it was a kid's understanding of. I knew Elvis was Elvis because everybody knew who Elvis was.
Of course, yeah.
But I didn't know. I just took everybody's word for it that he was the king of rock and roll.
Wow.
I didn't find out why until far later. But I just dispute it because everybody's like, oh yeah, Elvis is the king.
And so, when you started doing the Elvis tribute, I mean, you must have had some of these people that were the diehards, so to speak, coming up to you and like, oh man, I love what you do, and that's just got to that shows me, a guy that was like 6 years old at the time that he died, how much of this is really truly from your heart, and I think it makes your story that much, more interesting because it's the fact that a lot of these guys I interview, they were fans of the bands that they paying tribute to or whatever, and they're like, man, I love the music from the minute I heard it. And I think it's kind of interesting that you kind of morphed into what you're doing now, and it is what it is. And you told me, well, I'm a bigger fan because when I started out, I was just a casual fan or casual Elvis fan. And I think, man, this makes this just such a great story.
Well, yeah. Well, thanks.
Yeah.
I still find new stuff to love about Elvis all the time, and I think that's what if you just listen to some of the movies, listen to the live.
Yeah. And I could talk to you all night, James, but I know you're very busy. But before I let you go, I'd like to ask you, have you ever heard of this TV show they have out here called The World's Greatest Tribute Bands?
Yeah.
And what's your thoughts on that? Would you ever consider trying to get on there?
Yeah, and I don't know how you do. They called in, because I live in L.A., and they shoot it at the Troubadour.
I think...
My friend's bands go on there, and they hired Justin Shadover to come down. Who I've actually, a friend of mine, and, I think if you're going to see somebody who's closer sounding and looking to Elvis, I would hire him, too.
Yeah.
But I have a little more rock and roll show, but I love that guy. I would do that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, see, the interesting thing is I think now they're shooting the show down at the Whiskey, and I've been to a couple of the TV tapings, and it's kind of an interesting experience because typically the shows are about an hour, and so it's kind of interesting once the band hits the stage, it's kind of like the show is over as fast as it starts, because it's like live TV, and so there's not much chance to correct too much, but I've really enjoyed all the TV shows, the TV tapings of that I've been to, and the interesting thing about it is they don't just get bands from out here in LA. They get submissions from bands from all across the United States, and like you said, they had your friend that does Elvis. He was on last season. They had another guy that does Frank Sinatra. He was on there. They had a guy that did Stevie Wonder, and
my friend's police band was on there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, see, so and then
the best police band in the world, and I loaned him a bass and I thought he was crazy when he said he was going to start a police tribute band, because the tribute bands weren't popular then.
Yeah, it's amazing.
He did it, and he started it, and now look, and he's like, they're the best in the world, I think.
Yeah, it's amazing to me that how successful some of these tribute bands are, and the thing about doing a police tribute, that is going to work because there's not a dozen other police tributes out here, in Los Angeles, and so that's why something like that would work out.
It's weird. It's tricky to play that stuff live.
Yeah.
And to have a guy who can sing like Sting. It's like having a guy who can sing as well as Michael Jackson, which is very rare because the vocal range is just just otherworldly. I think it's maybe easier to do a voice than to sing. Somebody told me in regards to Michael, he actually had hired this kid to play like his double, like when he'd be making appearances, he'd take this guy in his limo with him, and when he'd be trying to get away from a crowd, he'd have this guy pretend to be him and stuff, and so it's kind of interesting that people get gigs, even just because of the fact that they look like somebody like that, and so I know it's weird that there are people out there who really do look so close to
sometimes
isn't it some like Madonna impersonator and a Cher impersonator, you swear you could, oh my God, you can't stop looking at them.
Well, James, like I said, I could talk to you all night, and I've really enjoyed hearing your story. You have a really great story to tell, and maybe we can do it again down the line. But in the meantime, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to do this. I really enjoyed it. So the interview itself will probably be going up in probably about 1 or 2 weeks. I'm just finishing up a new batch of interviews, so we'll be posting all these interviews around the same time. And once it posts, I will be sure to let you know so you can check it out. Once it gets up there on the site, you're welcome to do whatever you want with it and tell all your friends about it, please.
Okay, sure will.
Okay, take care, my friend. I've enjoyed talking to you. Bye-bye.